Welcome to my tutorial for the woven cable stitch pattern used in my DA leg warmers pattern. If you're using this for another pattern, make sure you're working in a multiple of 3 stitches. This does allow for 2 stitches for a seam allowance. These 2 are going to be your salvage stitches that'll be seamed later, so if you don't need to seam them, you can eliminate those 2. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do the stitch pattern. The first is using a cable needle. You can use any version of a cable needle. We're going to start by knitting 2 stitches. We are then going to slip the next stitch onto the cable needle as if to purl, slip all the way off the left needle and hold in front. Knit the next stitch, then we're going to knit the next stitch from the cable needle. So you're going to slide the stitch all the way to the end of the cable needle and knit off of the cable needle. And we're going to repeat that sequence until 1 stitch remains. So we're going to slip the next stitch purlwise off of the left needle, hold in front, knit the next stitch. Now there's another way that you can work this stitch. Rather than working directly from the cable needle, you can slip it back onto your left needle, the same side that you grabbed the stitch from originally, and then knit the stitch. I'll show you both ways again. So slip, hold in front, knit the next stitch, knit the stitch from the cable needle, make sure you slide it to the opposite end and knit, slip, hold in front. Oop, that stitch is twisted for some reason. I'm going to work that through the back loop. And then you can place this on your left needle and knit it. Now I prefer this last way, so I'm going to do the rest of the video in that manner. Slip, hold in front, knit, knit the stitch from the cable needle. Slip, knit, knit. And we're doing this until 1 stitch remains, and you're going to knit the last stitch. So if we look at our fabric now, you should see that we have these little slants off to the left. So now let's work a wrong side row. We're going to purl the first 2 stitches. We are going to slip the next stitch the same way that we did on our right side, but rather than holding in the front, we're going to hold to the back of our work. Purl the next stitch, and then purl the stitch from the cable needle. And again, you can slide this stitch up to the end and work it off directly off the cable needle, or how I prefer is to slip it back on the left needle and then work it. Again, this is going to get repeated. Slip, hold in back, purl 1, purl the stitch that's on the cable needle, all the way until 1 stitch remains. Purl the last stitch. Straighten out your work. Look at it from the right side. Now you should see little slants going to the right. So now I'll show you the second way to do this, which I think is a lot more fun, and it actually goes by quicker once you get the hang of it. So you can take your cable needle and toss it off to the side. We won't need it. We're going to start the same by knitting 2 stitches. And then what we're actually going to do is turn and look behind our work, and our needle is actually going to go in between the 2 stitches so that it's now pointing towards you at the right side of your work. And we're going to knit this second stitch, not this first one, but the second one. And it's going to be tight, and if you have sharp needles, it'll be to your advantage. So once you've knit that, leave it, and then we're going to separate out this first stitch, knit that one, and then both of these stitches now come off of the left needle. Do that again. So we're going to go to the back of our work, and we're going to go completely in between the 2 stitches, knit into the second stitch, leaving everything on the needle, knit into the first stitch. Notice how I separate this. Knit into the first stitch. Now both of those stitches come off the needle. Go around to the back, in between, needles at the front, knit into the second stitch, knit into the first stitch. So what we're doing is typically this stitch would get held onto the cable needle and put in front. So we're using our left needle kind of as the cable needle, and we're just going around this stitch. The second stitch gets worked first, even with that first stitch on the cable needle. Then we come back and work the first stitch. So we're just eliminating the extra steps of moving this out of the way. We're just going to go around it instead. And again, it'll probably be a little bit more difficult at first, especially if you don't have the right needles. Make sure you have the right needles. Mine are a little bit too dull for this. I should ideally be using sharper ones. And then knit your last stitch. And when we look at our work again, we should see that this row looks the same as our first row, so making a slant off to the left. So now let's work our wrong side. It's actually a little bit easier, believe it or not. We're going to start with purl 2. Then normally this stitch is the one that's going to get held onto the cable needle and put to the back. So all we have to do is actually just go straight into that second stitch and purl it. Separate these 2 stitches out so you see which one's which. Purl the first stitch, and then they both come off just like before. Again, just completely skip over the first stitch, go straight into the second stitch and purl. Now go into the first stitch, then take them both off. Nothing comes off till that last part. Purl the second stitch, purl the first stitch, both of them now jump off. And we're doing this all the way to the end again. If you're a really tight knitter, it's crucial for the stitch pattern to go up in needle size, otherwise you will struggle. I am a tight knitter, so typically speaking, I go up 1 needle size, and for this stitch pattern I went up 2. Now you're going to purl your last stitch. So now, when we look again at our fabric, we'll see that this last row looks the same as our second one, slanting off to the right, and that is your woven cable stitch. Good job!